Okay, hey everybody, welcome. My name is Todd Jones, and I'm here with Mayor of Reading, Tenessa Audette, who is running for State Assembly District 1. And this is really our version of a candidate forum. So we reached out to both candidates. We attempted to select several different dates. We could not land on one. Heather was not available to meet with us. And so we're going to ask you the same questions that we would ask at the candidate forum if we were to have one live, which we were planning on having one today. So Tenessa, thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
Tell us about, introduce yourself and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. These candidate forums are really important. They are the job interview for this position. And so I'm really grateful that the Chamber of Commerce is hosting something so that the people actually can hear more from candidates. So yes, I am the mayor here in Reading, which is a high honor. It's the largest city in Assembly District 1. We've got about 93,000 people that live in Reading, and so it's a big organization. I sit on many different boards because of that. I sit on LAFCO, which is about land use. I sit on I'm a water board commissioner, and as we know, there are many issues about water in California. So my extensive experience in local government is super helpful for this position. Also, my background is business. I have a political science degree from Sonoma State. I worked for Black & Decker, DeWalt Power Tools. So Black & Decker owned DeWalt Power Tools. I worked for them doing marketing. And my best job that I've ever had is I am a mom of 3 kids. And so I stayed home with them for about 10 years. And I, in that time, really worked with nonprofits. So I worked with PTOs, PTAs. I was on the board of MOPS and moms clubs and all the things that I really cared about that I wanted to give back into my community around my child's napping schedule. Because, that is the most important job, is to get them to take a nap. So that was a success. We got him into school, and then I began working on campaigns. So I've run my own campaign company for the last 9 years. I've run 12 different political campaigns. And then 5 years ago, I began being a district representative for the Senate 1st District. So I've actually covered all of this district, serving constituents and really being an activist for people trying to navigate state services, which we could spend hours talking about that, and more recently as an elected official. So local experience, understanding what local control really means, and the mechanisms by which the state of California and the legislature sort of takes away the rights of local governments and takes away a lot of the things that incentivizes economic development in the area. So that's me.
Awesome. So 2024, there's a lot happening in the world. What made you decide to run? Why are you running now?
For State Assembly?
Yes, for State Assembly.
Yeah, so these opportunities don't really come very often. And in politics, you can want to do something, but it's really about timing. Mm-hmm. And so when there's an open seat for a legislative position, I really had to ask myself, what is it going to take to cover such a vast district? Who are the people that actually know that district really well? I mean, it's one thing to live in the district, but knowing what I know, having worked in the district as a field rep and as a district rep, it means I've been in all of these counties. I know intimately the issues, whether in crisis or just in life, the issues that they face around energy, around wildfires, insurance, unemployment, their Second Amendment rights, all the things that the state is really infringing on people. I'm very aware of that and have been advocating for the people for a while. So it was really important to me that we get a candidate that could advocate and that could go in there in day one and get the job done. So I didn't see that, and I decided to step up to do that and to be that, and that's why I decided to run.
Awesome. So your opponent is also Republican. We have the jungle primary in California that started in 2010 with actually someone I know a little bit, Charles Munger Jr., put that into place. And I won't elaborate on that jungle primary, but it's a really interesting process. And so what makes you different from your opponent?
Yeah, so we had, I believe it was 7 Republicans when this race began. And slowly but surely, as you start to travel the 28,000 square miles, you realize this is a big task. People are different throughout the district. And so how do you address each of their issues? And so we got it all the way down in the primary to 4 Republicans. No Democrats ran. And I don't know the reason why, but they didn't. And so top two Republicans moving forward, myself and my opponent, I'd say the biggest difference is that I have a lot more experience. So I have been elected, I've been in local government, I've served on these local boards, so I actually understand how that system works, where it's failing, how we can make it better. Being an elected official means that you are making decisions, so I actually have a record. You can see that's why Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association endorsed me in the primary, because they know that I actually, I walk the walk when it comes to actually trying to reduce taxes and reduce the burden of government on people. I also have a background, I've been teaching the Constitution for the last 6 years, both the federal and the California Constitution. So just understanding, what the ideal of what government is supposed to be doing, protecting people, protecting property. It isn't about giving them more money and hoping that they give us back something that they can do. So I haven't been a bureaucrat. I haven't actually worked in the bureaucracies. I've actually worked for the people. And so I'd say that's a huge difference, plus just running a business, having the experience vastly, whether it's small business, corporations, understanding the issues with parental rights, understanding I've sort of experienced these things in a different way and had to legislate accordingly. So I would say that's one of the biggest differences.
All right, great. So you've been in elected office. What are you most proud of in your time as being an elected official? What is the one thing that the biggest accomplishment, the biggest thing that you've walked away with in your time as an elected official?
Yeah, so for me, my approach coming in is what is going to be the best role for government in any decision. And anytime we have great ideas, that doesn't mean that government is going to be the best executor of that idea. I think there are some things that government does well, especially locally, which would be police, fire, infrastructure, but I think they don't really do a great job of sort of operating things. So anytime that we can do the public partnership where we create infrastructure so that private industry or nonprofits can actually do the work and operate, I think we're in a better spot. So I would say the biggest accomplishment was we started something called the At Home Group, which was CSAC, the Council of Counties, asked for local governments to come together and to figure out what in the world is being spent on this homeless housing funding, and can you audit that? Can you look at that? Can you create some efficiencies and accountability around that? And so we are the only county that was able to pull in your county, City of Anderson, City of Redding, City of Shasta Lake. We actually formed a committee. We actually passed resolutions in each of those bodies, and we actually got the main objective executed, and that was to create a resource center, a day resource center. What we identified as a huge gap of service is the fact that we have all of these different agencies and all these different groups that are helping the homeless, but there really isn't one point of entry to figure out who these people are, have them come to one location, get whatever it is that they need to sort of move past their encampment, move past being on the street, and actually start transitioning themselves into some housing and transition themselves into a different lifestyle. And so we were able to do that. We identified a location, we identified funding. We actually partnered with the Good News Rescue Mission, who has already been in this sector for 60 years. We were able to purchase a building, and we gave them a loan. And so because we gave them a loan, we have performance metrics. So it's not just giving money to an NGO and hoping that they do a great job and that their presentation and their RFO is seamless. This really is about, can they actually perform? And so I would say that's one of those things, like grants are one thing, but loans, I think, provide a totally different set of metrics for accountability to the people's money going out to solve an issue. So I say I'm most proud of that.
That's great. Thank you. Talking about housing and talking about this day resource center, housing is a big issue all over the state of California.
Yep.
What are some ways that you can reduce the cost of housing? Because I won't elaborate too long on my question, but it just costs a lot of money in the state of California. And builders have to be able to be profitable when selling a house. So what are some things that California can do to reduce the cost of housing?
Yeah, so in government in general, you can pass laws that incentivize behavior, you can pass laws that de-incentivize behavior, and you can let the free market do what it does. You let the market decide what it wants. And in housing specifically, we've really done a terrible job of incentivizing the right things, and we have completely messed with the markets. When you tell builders that they have to have sprinklers, but the market's not asking for sprinklers, you have a huge added cost that nobody asked for and the market's not willing to pay for. Same with solar. While these are good ideas, they're certainly not market tested ideas where people are willing to pay $50,000, $100,000 more for a house because it has solar or because it has sprinklers. But these costs to the builders, it's why we don't have apartments being built very much, because you add so much cost to each individual unit. You can't spread that out the same way that you used to. So really what we can do is stop having all these mandated market killers to construction. Listen, we need construction to be safe, but the amenities that a builder provides need to be driven by the market and where they're building. And in the state of California, they've basically said, here's all these regulations, these are all the things that you need to do, and the market is saying, we don't want that. And we're not willing to pay $600,000 for a 1,000 square foot house that doesn't actually serve our needs. When it's so expensive, people can't put their loved ones into, other housing. They want them to come and live with them, but we're making that so difficult because we can't build homes that actually accommodate, the multi-generations and families. We've really put ourselves in a tough spot. We've overtaxed, we've overburdened, and it is actually driving people, out of markets. So I would say to deregulate some of these things that are very market-driven and allow the market to determine how you want to build.
That's great. So talking about regulation, at the Chamber of Commerce, we were founded on advocacy. We want to stand up for local businesses. We want to help people succeed in our area. And obviously we're focused on the greater Redding area. So the majority of Shasta County is who we're focusing on. And but we like to see our neighbors prosper as well. So how can we make the state of California more business friendly? What are some ideas to make us, because the state of California is the 5th largest economy in the world. So we have things that work, but it's really working in our more, urban areas, San Francisco, Los Angeles. They have a lot of big businesses there. How can we separate that and spread the love and make sure that businesses in rural areas like Assembly District 1 can be more successful?
That is a loaded question. That would probably take
we
should spend 3 hours
we could talk
on
about that.
We could talk about that forever. So I would say one of the things that is really a killer to business is uncertainty. It is an absolute killer if you don't know what's going to happen year to year, what's going to be required, what your taxes are going to be, how are things going to shake out, what's the economy going to be like, what are my customers going to be looking for, am I going to have customers because people are leaving in droves, am I going to have a workforce, do we have people that actually can work and want to work? So I would say my first bill, which I talk about often, is going to be to make the legislature part-time. Because if they're in session, it's dangerous to business. We have passed thousands of laws per year, and every law that gets passed comes with hundreds of regulations that then our small businesses and businesses have to adjust. They have to, require all these things, which you have to hire people just to make sure that you're in compliance. So the fastest growing industries are all compliance based because we just have so many laws in California. There's 400,000 regulations in the state of California. 400,000. The next closest state is New York, and they have half that.
Wow.
That's
incredible.
3 times the national average for regulations. So we have just over-regulated ourselves out of a middle class. We have workforce leaving in droves. Of the 1.7 million people that have left California in the last few years, 70% of them earned over $200,000. Those are our workforce. That's our solidly middle class. Maybe they are a dual income household, or maybe AB5 was the final straw where we eliminated independent contractors. But people that were figuring out how to make it work so they could live in California couldn't make it work anymore because of the business climate that we have created. Now, it is not up to government to make business successful at all, but we need to create a climate where people can take risks, where they can start businesses, and we are not driving them out of business because of regulation. So I would say deregulating, not telling businesses what to do, but having remedies if businesses start to do things that are not good for consumers. We're supposed to be a watchdog for consumers. We are not supposed to be, being the person that tells them every little thing that they need to do. Micromanaging business is killing business in California. So I would deregulate. I would start to take a hands-off approach. I would say, how can I incentivize business? What types of tax breaks can we give? When you get a small business, and it gets up to 100 employees, that's the danger zone where it now may be less profitable to grow. And so we have just a huge amount of businesses that get up to mid-level, and they're like, it's not worth the cost to actually stay. Same for people earning money. The effective tax rate in California for people earning $150,000 or more is 50%. 50% of your income goes to taxes. That's your effective tax rate. That's your sales tax. That's your income tax, federal tax. Like if you're earning 150, which no one's going to shake a stick at 150 grand. You're thinking that's a good living.
Right.
It isn't. If you're being taxed at 50% your effective tax rate, you're not. How are you going to then pay for your rent, for your food, tuition for your kids, or your dance class, or the football team, or whatever it is that you want to pay for? Your money does not go as far as it used to. And then don't get started on energy bills. We're making it so difficult to have energy. We are doubling, tripling the price of energy because of our policies. So there is a lot we can do to make the business climate better, and we have to start.
Yeah, that's great information. One of the things that I'm passionate about personally is forest management. I know this comes up a lot on the campaign trail, and I think one of the things, and I will kind of preface this question a little bit, the state of California only manages and owns 3% of the forest in California, so a majority of it is actually owned by the federal government. The
Correct.
Forest Service, BLM has a chunk, obviously the National Park Service and the Department of Interior have some of that. How can the state of California, and this is a little bit of a bias-loaded question, but I would ask any candidate this, how can the state of California really affect forest management when a lot of these are federal policies that are affecting the way that we can live, and it obviously affects insurance, but really lives are at stake when we have these mismanaged forests. So how can the state of California be a part of the forest management ecosystem?
Yeah, this is a huge issue because this is driving wildfire issues. This is driving insurance issues. So I would say it's going to take partnership. Congressman Doug LaMalfa has endorsed me, and part of that is because of the conversations and the due diligence that I have spent over this last year and a half really getting into the forest. I've done ride-alongs with our loggers. I've done ride-alongs with supervisors to talk about how are we actually going to manage these forests. I've been on some of the fires to find out what's working, what's not working, where have they been able to strike better than other times, what was the plan of attack, how are we going to protect people. And so I think on that side, on the federal land side, which is a huge part of District 1, that is our land. So when we say it's the federal government, at the end of the day, it's the people's land. Whether it's the state that's managing it or the federal government, at the end of the day, those are your trees. That is your forest, and it is unhealthy. And we need to require our representatives to do something about that. And so Congressman LaMalfa and I have been talking about this a lot because we want to be able to strike while the iron's hot quickly. With this new, whichever administration comes in, this has to be a priority that the two of us sort of beat that drum on both sides, on the state side and on the federal side. And he's a great partner with me in that. And that is one of those things that we want to do right away once in office. Like you'll find bills like that are going to come out of my bill package. Once you get elected in December, you start to build your bill package that first month because you can start introducing bills in January. And so that's going to be something that I absolutely hit pretty hard is how are we going to actually manage our forests? And when it comes to federal lands, I'm going to be partnering with Congressman LaMalfa to do that. But yeah, we have to have fuel reduction. Nobody wants wildfires, but if we have not thinned the forest, if it's affecting our watersheds, it's affecting people's lives and their livelihoods, we're going to have to address that, and I think that partnership will help to do that.
Yeah, partnership is a big deal. Thank you for that answer. If you're elected, you're going to be in a super minority.
Yeah.
Everyone always says super majority, but you're in a super minority.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the number is of Republican assembly members or in the Senate, but it's a pretty low number. How do you plan to work effectively in our state government?
Yes, well, I have good training on this because I was the only girl with 3 brothers for many, many, many years. There's actually 6 of us. I have one sister. She's the youngest, but there's 4 boys and me. So I've I'm used to being the super minority in the family, and I have learned, how to have my voice heard in the process. But, honestly, I think that California is probably at the lowest it's ever been as far as what our government is actually doing for its people. There's all these ideas, all these policies that for 20 years has been one-sided, and we're seeing the results of that now. And I think Californians are ready to see something different. And I think a great idea is a great idea no matter who puts it forward. So whether it's Democrats putting it forward or Republicans, I'm going to champion great ideas that are good for people. And it doesn't really matter to me if I'm in the minority or the majority. I'm going to work just as hard for the people of my district. I really think that if you go in thinking you can't do anything, you'll likely not do anything. But I think all things are possible. And I'm pretty relentless when I know that there's something that's going to be good for people. So I can guarantee you I will fight just as hard if I'm winning or if I'm losing. There's not much that's going to deter me from actually fighting for the people of the district.
That's great.
Yeah.
What other big issues? What are things that we're not covering right now? What is something that you're passionate about that you want to bring to the state legislature day one?
I think, we have so many issues that are happening right now, and people feel like they're not represented. So one of the things that I'm going to do that hasn't been done before is I'm going to take my 3 allocated field reps and I'm going to divide them into 6, and I'm going to put them throughout my district. Likely my plan is to embed them with chambers of commerce or with EDCs, because I do think that the business community, especially the small business community, often doesn't feel like all of these laws that are that people are thinking about, well, how's that going to affect a small business? Like a big business can withstand a lot of these things, and they have lobbyists. All these huge corporations have lobbyists, but these small businesses do not have individual lobbyists for them. And I feel like at this point, the people need a lobbyist. And that's sort of my plan, to come in and to be their lobbyists. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is to have people, small businesses, different individuals, whether my ranchers, my farmers, whether it's for ag, whether it's for business, whether for arts and culture, whatever it is throughout our district, educators, whatever. I want them to come to the Capitol. I want them to testify. I want them to speak to committees. I want them to tell their story, whether that's in the halls of Sacramento, in their offices, or in committees. And so if I have embedded field representatives in rural districts, which we've never had field reps for this district, in the rural districts. So I'm going to put them in Wairika and Susanville and Quincy, Grass Valley, Jackson, and Redding. I'm not just going to consolidate them to my 2 largest population centers. I'm going to actually put them in those rural counties so that there is a presence there, so people have somebody to talk to, that they can have their questions answered by somebody who comes to a council meeting or comes to a board of supervisor meeting, or you see them at lunch. What's happening? What's going on with this bill? Because our rural districts really feel disconnected. They feel like they don't have the voice, and their voice is just as important as every other Californian in the state. And so I want to do my best at home first to prioritize the people, to give them a voice, to give them a representative that they know that's in the area, and then create this pathway that they can come to Sacramento to testify, that we're going to make that as accessible as possible. And just build. We're just going to build. We really need to build some momentum. We need to build our rural team. And I think that that's going to go a long way to doing that. And not a lot of people talk about it because not a lot of people are coming from district staff. Anytime that you hear about staffers running for office, typically it's people that have been in the building, as we say, in Sacramento. They sort of understand how it works. Maybe they don't have great candidates, but not often are you coming from the district. And I think it provides you more of the people's voice when you've had this experience. And so I'm very excited to actually offer that, to bring that, and to make that happen.
That's great. Politics is a really tough thing to do. It is not for the faint of heart. Every time I see you, you always have a smile on your face. How do you do it? How do you stay hopeful and optimistic for the future of what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so I love history. My dad's a veteran. I have veterans on both sides of my family. So I just grew up with just this deep sense of love for my country. And obviously faith, right? I think all things are possible. I think if, bad things happen, you should strategize and overcome those things. And I really do have hope always ahead of me, saying there's a solution, there's something more. I also have played sports my whole life, 4 brothers, lots of boy cousins, and played many different sports. And so I kind of see politics as my sport. And I think we need to grow our teams. I think people need to understand they always have a role to play, whether you're on the team or, I mean, I was the water boy for years, you know, helping candidates to get elected. But whether you're in the stadium, you need to be involved. Like, we have an election, which means this is homecoming. Like, this is the big game, you know? And if people are putting their hats on and their shirts on, it's really they're cheering for their team. It's not personal. We don't hate the other team, but we're really in a competition. And people need to understand you can't take it too seriously. Nobody gets mad, you know, at either team for wearing their team colors at the big game. And I just, you know, you want to put that in context, but it's a team sport, politics, and you should be cheering for your team. You should know their stats. You should know who the players are. And it's really important that we understand it affects us. It affects us in the long run. It affects us in policy. And so, yeah, I say that often. Politics is my sport. I don't mean to make light of it, but I do think it needs practice. I think you need to be involved. And no matter who you are, you can play a role and you can do important things and affect the team. And so I think the more we can get people involved, the more we can do. I think the more people see that there's hope at the end of the tunnel, they can kind of put things into perspective. I feel like the people that are super hands-off always get the most frustrated because they feel like, well, I don't even know how you would fix it. And it's like, well, engage, because there's lots of things that you can do incrementally or whatever to get us back on track. But it just requires that people show up.
Yeah. That goes right along with really what I want to do with the chamber, along with my board, is getting off the sidelines. We want to get people to get engaged. We need to increase our labor force participation rate in Shasta County specifically, of course, where I'm focused the most. And we need people to be educated. I mean, I want our chamber members to know what is going on, know our legislators, go down to the Capitol, talk to them about issues that are important to them, and stay away from the really hot, polarizing issues. What can we actually accomplish? What can we do to make our community more business friendly? And what can we do to tell our story? Because putting our head in the sand and not paying attention is not going to help. It's not going to get us anywhere. You're either at the table or you're on the menu. So get to business and focus on what you can do to make your state better. And don't run away like everybody. I'm not going to South Carolina. I'm not going to Austin. I'm not going to Nashville. I'm going to stay here in our community and work with folks like yourself to make our community a better place to live.
Yeah, we have to have people in the fight.
That's a tangent, sorry.
No, but you got to have people in the fight.
Right.
And I think that too often what I hear from electeds is, well, that's not what I do, or we can't fix that, or I don't know how to do that. That's somebody else's thing. And what you can do is say, oh yeah, I don't have a ton of power or an influence over that, but I know the people that do. Let me connect you to those people. Let me just put you connected to the right people to actually affect that change, because that's amazing that they even want to be involved. Like, people that want to be involved asking you and you're saying, no, it's not me. Why would you do that? Like, somebody coming and saying, hey, I want to play. And you're like, well, how old are you? You're 10. Okay, well, this is the 12-year-old, so I'm not going to help you anymore. Right. It's like, no, you're like, oh, that team's over there. You can go and help with that. Like, absolutely, we need people to get more involved. And I don't even mind if people disagree with me. I love the fact that they're at least engaged. They're trying to find out what is going on. I'll take all the criticisms every day if it means that people are looking for information.
Right.
But in the world of information, it feels like it's hard sometimes to know what to zero in on, what it is that you think you can change. But what you can always do is vote. It is your number one superpower in the American system, is actually being able to vote. And so if people abdicate their responsibility and their privilege to vote, they can't really complain about everything else, but we can, because they're not voting, and that's putting us in the position that we're in. So I do think we need to grow the team. I think you need to get more people, especially in business, speaking up and saying, you're crushing us. And I want to create those pathways for small businesses to come in and say, hey, if it wasn't for these regulations, I'd grow by another 30 employees.
Right.
If it wasn't for this new rule, I'd be able to hire 5 more people. If it wasn't for this different legislation that you guys are attempting, it's going to crush, my market and my industry. Like, that doesn't work for us. Even all of the carb restrictions and taking trucking out of California, I mean, it's getting crushed on every side. And so we need the whole system to be operating and working, which means all of the voices need to participate.
That's great. All right, closing statements. What do you want to tell our chamber members and those watching at home right now about why you should be, or anything else you want to say for closing statements, why you should be elected to our state assembly?
Yeah, I definitely want to say that businesses are the backbones of our community. You know, most people move somewhere for a job, and the fact that their family is there is just a bonus as to another one of those motivators. But business really is kind of what drives community. And so we need to champion that. And having somebody in the legislature to champion that and to vocally champion that is going to be really important. And I want to be that. I want to be that for the business community as well. And I would say, if you haven't learned more about me, I have videos, I have content. I think you should get to know who it is that you're voting for. So I want to make sure you know my position on issues right at the jump. So if you go to my website, votetenessa.com, you can see that. I also put my phone number on all my material. It's on my website. If you want to call me and ask me questions directly, I will always make myself available. And if you're in the Reading area, I'm having an event at C.R. Gibbs on the patio October 10th at 5 o'clock. It's happy hour. I will be the happiest politician you've ever known. I can promise you that, because I really, really feel like we can take this state back. We could actually really affect change. I think no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you want a California that's working for you, for your people, that can do a lot. And as the 5th largest economy in the world, the most prosperous state, it's time that it reflects that when you look around. And so that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to bring us back to a good and prosperous, hopeful state.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mayor Audette. Again, from the Chamber, this is Todd Jones. I'm the President and CEO, and our goal is really to educate our members right now. We don't have a political action committee. We are no longer endorsing candidates, but we want to make sure that our members and the public are educated on what's happening in our community. And with our ballot, we have a lot happening on the ballot. Ballots are probably dropping today and this week, and we want to make sure that people are making an educated decision when they are casting their vote for who's going to take us into the future of California. So thank you again for being here today.
Yeah, my pleasure.